I would probably say my marriage. I wasn't happy in my life. I didn't want to work my 9 to 5 job. I had young kids and pressures, and I wanted to find a way to make money. And my ex-husband, he was my husband at the time, refused. So finally, I left. What's something I refuse to spend money on, no matter how rich I get? I've got this thing about designer clothes because I honestly don't understand why I'm paying £2,000 for a top that would, from one of the normal shops I like, would be, 50 quid? And that's what I don't get. I don't get the obsession with designer clothes. And I know people love it and people love designers, but for me, the more money I've made, the more I've realised a t-shirt's a t-shirt. It does the same job, doesn't it? It's the marketing company and brands that have made that t-shirt into a big thing. So I would say, designer clothes is something I'm still not interested in. I still don't wear. I don't know if that might change, but I don't want to spend money on it because for me it's a waste. It doesn't give me a return. One book, movie or quote, it's got to be my favourite book in the world, and it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I read this very early on into my journey of doing property and building wealth, and it is a game changing on what it teaches you in that book, and it is so different from what his rich dad does to his poor dad does, and it was, brilliant. Anybody wanting to look into money, start making money, build wealth, that is one of the books I 100% recommend. How do you stay hungry after becoming financially free? This is a hard one because I got to a certain point, and you get to a certain point where you think, I've got a lot of money, I have a nice life, and I suppose what keeps you hungry is constantly wanting to go to the next level. Because what did I do? I tackled property, built a property portfolio and did really, really well in it. And then I took my view to business and building businesses, and I'm really interested at the minute in buying businesses and what the private equity firms do. So I think as you go into the world of success and making money, when you don't have to work for money, when you're free and you don't have a job or anything like that, I think what keeps you hungry is discovering new things. I like learning. I love a good learn. I love looking at what's going on in the world, and I think that's what keeps me hungry, thinking, can I make, I made property a success. Can I make this a success? Can I make this a success? How better can I best serve the world? And that's what keeps me hungry. What did success cost me that I will never be able to get back? Oh, that's a good one. I would probably say my marriage, because at the time I was starting to think about, I wasn't happy in my life. I didn't want to work my 9 to 5 job. I had young kids and pressures, and I wanted to find a way to make money. I didn't realise it was going to be property, but I was very much talking about, having a little eBay store, an Etsy store. I was on about selling products. I was getting into wanting to make more money, and my ex-husband, he was my husband at the time, refused. He thought the only way to live life was to have a 9 to 5 job, pay off your mortgage, pay into your pension, and that was doing it. And every time I pushed and I wanted to do something and I wanted to give up my job and I wanted to go all in, he was refusing. So finally, I left, and our marriage went down. I mean, it took a long time for our marriage to go down, and do I regret it? Sometimes, because my children were 2.5 and 5 at the time, and to walk away with 2 little kids, take them from their dad into a little rented home, it's not the easiest thing. So I would say probably my money and success a day cost me my first marriage. But I also think it came with great upsides as well, being able to be in my rented house, be so skint, that really drove me to want to make money than ever before. I would probably have made money if I'd have stayed in my marriage, but I was kind of comfortable. He had a good salary, I probably wouldn't have had the absolute, the want to do it and the drive to do it, because I had no other choice. I had to. There was no failing. I had to do it. So I think it comes with 2 sides, but I'd say my marriage. My current impossible goal that excites me the most. So I have this thing that I want, and I want to teach millions of people in the world how to be financially free. No matter where you live in the world, no matter how poor you are, no matter what you've got, I want to be able to to help you to make money if you want, because not everybody wants this life, not everybody wants to make money. Some people are quite happy in their job, and we do need people that are happy in jobs and stuff because of how our economy works. But I'd say that's the most exciting thing for me, that on my deathbed I want to be known as the woman that helped millions and millions of people across the world. I inspired them to go and have a better life for them and their family. So my personal checklist before saying yes to the deal is, does it work on paper? The numbers have to add up, and I have to take my emotions out of it. And being a woman, I know some women might beat me here, but being a woman, you're quite an emotional character. So when you're doing business and property, you have to take your emotions out. So black and white, does it work on paper? That's number one. Number two, how much does it work? What return on investment am I getting? Because if I'm putting £1 in, minimum I want is £2 back. So, because my return on investment, I want it high. So is it going to make me enough money back, or could I do something else with my money? That's the second one. And the third one, does it fit in my overall strategy and business plans going forward? Because, for example, if I decide over the next 2 years, one of the biggest things I want to do is I want to build houses. I want to help the housing crisis. So buying, doing maybe holiday lets across the UK isn't part of it. So does it fit my overall strategy and purpose and what I'm going to do next? And they're probably the three biggest things I look at. But if the numbers work, I'm getting a good return, it fits in my strategy, I'll do it. A mistake I still see 90% of property investors making today is doing property the hard way. And they buy in the personal name, they don't buy in a limited company. So from day one, they are at risk and they're not tax efficient. And also what they do is they buy properties with deposits. So they save up a couple of years, have a 25% deposit, buy a property, put a tenant in, they're a property investor. Whereas the way I would do it is buy it cash, refurb it, put the mortgage on, pull out the cash. So I'm recycling money. So yeah, some people do it the hard way, and that's the biggest things I see. If I could say just one thing to a newbie property investor, it would be this: to not worry about a property crash. So many people want to do property, yet the crash of 2007, 2008 seems to stick in their heads and it stops them doing it. They panic they're going to buy a house and the market's going to drop. What they don't seem to understand is 2007, 2008 was done by the banks. There wasn't actually a property problem. It wasn't the houses. The banks overlent and then had to pull back, and that killed our market. Nothing else, it was the banks. So I would like to reassure new property investors that there ain't going to be a crash. We've got a massive housing crisis. Property keeps on going up in value. It has done since times begun, and it's one of the safest investments you can make. AI is not going to take it out. It's a basic human need, and what a better way to serve than giving people homes. One of the hardest things I've done in my business is trust other people to run them. So you get two types of business owners. You get business owners that work in their business. These people are tired, exhausted, they're stressed, they're making every decision, they're doing everything, and they're holding their business back from growing. Then you get the other type of business owner who works on their business. You see them, they're traveling, they're doing really, fun stuff. They might be doing the next deal. They're not actually in the business. But to be where you work on your business, not in it, you've got to trust other people. So I can remember I was running my business, I was in it, I was working all the hours, I was stressed, I was making every decision because I didn't trust anybody else, and it was wearing me out, and I was getting knackered, and I was like, why am I I'm making good money. Why am I letting my life be like this? I'm doing it. So I had to take a step back and I had to let somebody else in. And that was hard because I'd made all the decisions. It was my baby, and it's like handing your baby over to someone else. So that was probably one of the hardest. And it was when we recruited our CEO, who has now tripled our company. So it was the best decision we ever made. And the more I got out of the day-to-day and I got out of people's way and I focused on strategy and bigger picture stuff and the next, 5-10 years of the business instead of the day-to-day, the business has made more money. What's the simplest way someone can start earning from property without buying a house? So I think this simplest thing someone to start making money in property is to be a property finder. So what you do, and this will develop your skills to be a shit hot property investor. What you do is you go and you find really, really good property deals that work on paper, deals that are awesome. You then negotiate the purchase price to a good level. And then what you do is you pass that to someone that's going to buy it, And because you've done all the hard work, you've done the viewing, you've done the numbers, you've negotiated it, they give you a finder's fee. And that can be anywhere from 5 to 10,000, depending what you're finding. So I think that's the quickest, easiest, without any risk, any money in, for somebody to get started, to be a property finder. We call them deal sourcers, finding deals. And the thing is, someone will say, yeah, but they could just find it themselves. Why would they pay you to find them? Because they don't want to do the work. They're busy. These people are busy. They've got a lot of money. They're doing things. They want deals. Like now, I'm a bit lazy. I live in Yorkshire. I've got my kids. I don't want to work a million hours. I would pay a property finder that brought me a really good commercial deal or bought me what I was looking for, and I would pay the money because it's well worth me saving my time. So yeah, deal sourcer, property finder. So many people get stuck when they start investing because of three things. Lack of money, because they look in the bank, they don't have money, they think, oh, I can't invest, I don't have any money, which is wrong. Second is knowledge. They don't know exactly what they're doing, and they bring risk into the equation, because when you don't know what you're doing, there's risk there. And knowing what you're doing takes away the risk. So it's a lack of knowledge. And thirdly would be fear. People are so frightened about doing what other people aren't. Most people go to work, pay off the mortgage, pay into a pension, and they call that life, and people are so afraid to step out of that because that's all they've ever known. That's what their friends and family are doing, to build a new life and make money.